Hey folks, and welcome back to West Yorkshire Retro Gamer. Apologies for not getting the match review out after the game yesterday. I actually was helping a friend out who conducts a local concert band, and so I was helping out with that straight after the match. So getting the review out today. If you could please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do please give this video a like. Really appreciate it. We're currently on 177 subscribers at the minute. If we could reach that 200 mark, it'd be a nice little milestone. I really want to try and grow this channel now. It's definitely going to be a hybrid of video game and football content going forward, which it has been for a little while, but I've kind of made the decision that's definitely what this channel is going to be about. But because I've been a retro gamer streamer since I started streaming 5 years ago, and not all on YouTube, that's why the number of subscribers is so low. If I was only making 177 subscribers after 5 years, I probably would have quit ages ago. But I started out as a Facebook streamer, still am. So I multi-stream to both Facebook and YouTube. But as far as the football content's concerned, that's exclusively to YouTube. It's not really a thing on Facebook, really. The gaming side's a bit more Facebook related, and that's how that's going to be for the channel going forward. So anyway, that's that little announcement out of the way. So yesterday, quite an exciting match. Leeds United versus Bournemouth. Leeds were in 12th, I think, before the match started, and I think Bournemouth were 4th. And in the first half, I didn't get to see the first half, I have to admit that. The entire first half I missed because of I was out in the day with my daughter, my niece and my nephew, which went really well, by the way. All three of them are growing up so fast. It's crazy. Like they're all young'uns, you know. They're all little kids, but my God, they are growing up quickly. So I only got to see all of the second half from a live perspective. Quite an exciting game overall. Having watched the highlights of the first half, looks very much like Dominic Calvert-Lewin could have had a hat-trick. As it stands, he didn't score any, and that might be part of the reason that we did not win the match, but only part. It's not completely down to that, not at all. So anyway, Bournemouth take the lead through a free kick which was kind of drilled hard and low into the goal. Not really sure how the ball got through in the end, but it evaded the wall. You know, it somehow got through the wall and the player lying down to cover the gap if the players in the wall were to jump. And also under the body of goalkeeper Caldalo. Quite a disappointing goal to concede. The highlights don't give me the approach as to how the free kick occurred, but a free kick so close to the edge of the box, I mean, could it have been prevented? I don't know. As I say, it's not fair for me to comment on something I've not seen, but it seemed like a very silly area to give away a free kick. Anyway, and it's funny when we talk about direct free kicks, because obviously Anton Stach scored an absolute screamer for Leeds against Wolves. This one from Semenyo for Bournemouth was completely different. This one was not necessarily a daisy cutter, but it was, it was a hard and low shot. It was not a nice curler towards the top corner. So anyway, that put us 1-0 down, but it didn't take us very long to equalise. I think it was within 10 minutes of Bournemouth scoring. Leeds get a corner, and as Leeds fans, we need to start getting concerned because Joe Rodon's almost becoming prolific. In his entire career, I think he'd either never scored or he'd only scored one goal before joining Leeds. And then last season he got his first ever goal for Leeds, and this season he's got his first goal of the season as well. Really good header from Joe Rodon coming off the corner, and that got us an equaliser. So we went in at half time at 1-1. And then going into the second half, this is a half that I did watch, and I was impressed. It's like, I think many of us Leeds fans had concerns at the start of the season as to whether we would be competitive, and which teams we could target to be the most competitive against, and which ones were probably going to give us a bit of a hammering. And up to now, there's only Arsenal that's given us an absolute tonking, and quite frankly, in that match, 2 of those 5 goals could have been very easily prevented. But the match was very early on in the season. Things hadn't clicked yet. There hadn't been a lot of work between Farker and his coaching staff and the new players and the players that were already there. And when you take the Arsenal match out of the equation, the other 5 matches, we've been very, very, very competitive. We are in the games, we're not getting outplayed. The goals are starting to come now. That's 5 goals in the last 2 games. Which is quite remarkable considering that we went, we went for so long with only 1 goal, and that was a penalty in the first game against Everton. So, from that perspective, it's really good. Because it's against 2 teams at opposite ends of the table. We've got 3 against Wolves who were bottom, and we got 2 against a team that at the time were in a Champions League space in the table. So, however you look at it in terms of how big those 2 clubs are, or how good you think their squads are, that kind of thing, purely from a table point of view, we've done pretty well there, really. And again, when you look at it now, we're averaging scoring a goal a game now. Still need to get a couple more wins on the board so that we can get into a positive goal difference, but -3 at this stage of the season is no disaster. We can certainly cure that as the season goes on. And as I've mentioned in a couple of the previous videos, DCL is definitely showing a striker's instinct in a sense of knowing what positions he needs to be in, being in that right place at the right time. He's also showing how aggressive he can be in terms of his aerial ability, which is really good. And as I said, there's a definite decent striker there. It's just whether he can be prolific. If he can start putting in some of these chances, as I say, he could have had a hat-trick in that first half, based on the statistics and highlights that I looked into. And also, another thing that was quite pleasing, when I watched the overall highlights, I think it was maybe Sky Sports highlights, most of the chances came from Leeds. The only chances that it highlighted for Bournemouth were Bournemouth's 2 goals. I don't think they actually highlighted any other. Whereas with Leeds, it was Leeds' 2 goals, and also, pretty much all of the DCL chances that he had. So, for us to come away with a good number of chances against Bournemouth shows we're moving in the right direction. So, where does this leave us in the table? I've got the table up on screen, so we may as well just talk about the table first, then we'll go into the actual match stats and other bits and bobs. So as things stand, Leeds currently 11th. There are some teams that have still only played 5 matches instead of 6, so they obviously, they obviously need to be played out in full. Now, as you've just seen, a couple of scores have just popped up there, and that'll be because the Arsenal-Newcastle match has just started to play, I believe. So they must be on a 4:30 kickoff. It's a bit of an unusual kickoff time, isn't it, if they're starting at 4:30? Weird. Anyway. But yeah, so... yeah, couple of teams still to play their match week 6 match. And as I say, FotMob's a live table when you view it, hence why those scores have come up. So don't worry too much about that. So Leeds United currently, I mean, it's a very symmetrical record after the first 6 games. It's 1-2 drawn, 2 lost, 2. And when you look at, that in isolation, you think, yeah, okay, that's not bad. Quite a solid return, from your first 6 games. But when you look at the bigger picture, 2 of those games, Leeds probably should have had more points than what they gained from them. The match against Fulham, which was one of the losses, should have really been a draw. When you look back at it now, it was a very late concession of a goal that gave Fulham the win. So that's 1 point dropped. And then the match that we've just played against Bournemouth, we were 2-1 up, and then we concede a very late goal again. So that is another 2 points dropped. So we probably, in terms of what we would have deserved if we had just been that little bit tighter and sharper and more awake in defence, we would have been 3 points better off on 11 points and probably would be as high as 7th right now. However, we're not, and that's just how it is. And, it's a big learning curve for this squad and this management team, because ultimately they've not been in this position before. The squad is very different to the last time that we were in the Premier League, and we've got a completely different management and coaching team. So it is a very different scenario. And as I say, I'm not complaining about us being in 11th position with 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses after the first 6 games. That doesn't give me cause for concern at all. It's just merely pointing out that if Leeds had been a little better, and if they'd just been that little bit sharper and just a little bit of game management, like when you know that you are that close to the end, the opposition's going to start trying to throw the kitchen sink at you. So just put your bodies on the line, be sharp, look at who you're marking, look at where the ball's going, and don't let them in. When Leeds scored their second goal in the second half, to put it 2-1 to Leeds, I was saying straight away, we need a third. We need a third goal to kill this match off, and then we've got enough to be able to, if we had a 2-goal lead instead of a 1-goal lead, we'd have been fine and we'd have won the match. The way the game was going, because for the most part we defended quite well, but there's always this concern, and the fact that both of Bournemouth's goals technically came from set pieces, that again is a little bit of a worry. Only a minor one at this stage. It depends if it becomes a problem later in the season, but at this early stage it's a clear indicator that is something we need to work on. You can see the team's working hard. The fact that we are so competitive in 5 of the 6 matches so far shows that they are working hard in training and they're trying different things. They are working on different aspects of the game. And I reckon that maybe by halfway through the season, I think they'll have improved on several areas. I really do. Because that'll be a proper amount of time then to have worked on a lot of individual things. So, as I say, 6 games, 2 of each, 6 scored as well. Which again is great for the goals scored column. With the fact that we'd been on just 1 goal for the first 4 games, and then games 5 and 6 we start piling them in. Which is great. And if we can just, as I said, we can just keep things a little tighter, and try and get rid of that negative goal difference, we'll be in really good shape. And 8 points after 6 games, that's not to be ashamed of. Especially when you consider the opposition. When you consider the teams we've played against and the positions that those teams were in when we played them, I don't see that bad as being bad at all. Absolutely not. I really don't. Having to have a drink through this video, I felt like I was going out with a cold this morning, so I've been a bit icky. Yeah, so the next opponent is Tottenham Hotspur, who, as you can see, are doing pretty well at the moment. They've got a 3-2-1. It's not a formation. It's the win, draw, loss column going on at the moment. They score a lot of goals and they don't concede many. But ultimately, maybe with us being at Ellen Road, maybe we can get something from it. Because we have played well in these other games, but the concern is that Tottenham are having a good season. They are seen as one of the big hitters, or bigger hitters at least. And the last big hitter that we played against, technically, was Arsenal. I would possibly include Newcastle in that equation, but they're having a bit of a dodgy season by their standards. But Arsenal did wallop us. Now, do I think that Spurs are going to wallop us? No, I don't see it. But we're going to have to be honest. We're going to have to be honest metal. There's no doubt about that. Right. So we've had a good natter about the table. So let's move on from that. So let me see if I can have a look at the Leeds match. Well, let's have a look at the fixture results of yesterday and today as well. Well, look at that. Aston Villa got their first win of the season. That took them long enough, didn't it? What the hell? So they won 3-1. I didn't even notice that. Let's just go back to the table for a second, because they were in dire situations with Villa. Villa moved up. Yeah, they have. Look at that. They're out of the relegation zone. At these early stages, when you get 1 win, they'd only had 3 draws and 2 losses. And that 1 win for them has now just got them out of the relegation zone and up to 16th. Yeah. Didn't even spot that, to be honest. Well, I did spot that Burnley had dropped down one, but Burnley's had a couple of stinker fixtures, to be fair. They've played a couple of the big boys and been heavily walloped. So, these things happen. So, if we go through the matches then very quickly, it gives me great pleasure in announcing that Manure got beat again. A little bit of a downer with it being Brentford, because they're one of the teams that are expected to be down near the bottom at the end of the season, so we don't want them getting too many points from a Leeds United perspective. But to see Manure get beat, lovely. We used to call them Chelsea scum when they were under Russian ownership, but again, Chelsea, another team that Leeds have got history with in the past, they've been beaten 3-1 as well by Brighton. There's no way that anyone would have bet 3-1 scores for Brentford and Brighton in this week, and the fact that they've both occurred is quite something. And look at that as well. Crystal Palace They're becoming a bogey side for Liverpool. They've already beaten Liverpool I think they beat them in the Community Shield at the start of the season. And they've ended up beating Liverpool 2-1. And also, I think Liverpool tried to get the Crystal Palace defender Mark Guéhi, and failed at the last minute. So Palace really are becoming a thorn in Liverpool's side, and that's despite the fact that Palace ended up losing. They lost two of their wingers that they bought from the Championship in Eze and Elise. I think they both come from QPR. I could be wrong on that one, but they lost both of them. Elise went to Bayern Munich and Eze went to Arsenal, and they're still able to beat Liverpool 2-1. Wow, that's Liverpool's first loss of the season as well. So there you go. Leeds, as we say, 2-2, and we'll go into that match in a moment. This is what I mentioned about Burnley getting a bit of a tonking. 5-1 against Manchester City. They were 1-1 at half time, so something must have really badly happened in the second half there, but a bit of a walloping. Another win for Sunderland, and away from home as well, against what seems to be a bit of a struggling Nottingham Forest at the minute. They've made a mistake, in my opinion, sacking, I call him Nintendo Entertainment System, because he's got NES written on front of his top, but Nuno Espirito Santo, he had a fallout with Marinakis, the Forest owner, left them, and now he's gone to join West Ham as West Ham's manager, and West Ham has sacked Graham Potter, and Karen Brady, who's on the West Ham board, went on TalkSport only about 2 weeks ago and was singing Graham Potter's praises. So everything that came out of her mouth was a lie, or at least half of it. So yeah, don't know what's going on there exactly, but anyway. So another win for Sunderland, and again, like Leeds, very much putting at least two of the three newly promoted teams in a very, very good position after the first 6 games of the season. But Forest have appointed Ange Postecoglou, who had a dreadful season with Tottenham last season. So Forest, all of a sudden, Forest could be in a bit of trouble this season. And now that West Ham have ditched Potter, and now that Villa have got their first win on the board, you're kind of thinking to yourself, it's a bit more wide open at the bottom of the league now. So anyway, that was that. And then look at Tottenham. They could only draw against Wolves, who hadn't even gained a point all season up to now. And that was Tottenham playing at home as well. Leeds have just beaten Wolves 3-1 a week ago. And that was at Molyneux, Wolves' ground. So yeah, so maybe this is a good thing, that it's a good sign for Leeds that if Wolves at Tottenham's ground can nick a draw against them, and Leeds are obviously Tottenham's next opponent, we'll take it. We'll absolutely take it. Villa beating Fulham 3-1. I mean, as I said, Leeds probably should have drawn 0-0 with Fulham. But Villa's been able to get a 3-1 win, which, it's only one match and one win, but it certainly seems that Villa may be showing signs that they're slowly getting back to the best at this point. And the latest score there, Arsenal-Newcastle, is 0-0. Tomorrow you got Everton versus West Ham, which could be interesting, as Everton's manager David Moyes did have a spell managing West Ham, and West Ham have just gotten rid of Potter and appointed Santo. Now, I don't think that Santo will have had enough time to implement his own ideas, in the space of a couple of training sessions, but I think you'll already see a little bit of a change with West Ham, I think, even in such a short space of time. So let's focus on the Leeds match. It was supposed to be a review about the match, so let's get into it. So as I say, bearing in mind that Bournemouth were quite high up in the table, and you know, Leeds were mid-table, you know, so you expect Bournemouth to be the favourites. And as I say, you know, Leeds are still unbeaten at Ellen Road. You know, it's 1 win and 2 draws. You know, it's not bad. If we can stay unbeaten at Ellen Road as long as possible, it's really not bad, and that'll help us. That'll definitely help. So, when you look at some of the stats, the momentum kind of shifted quite a few times, didn't it? There. Bournemouth had more possession overall, but Leeds had more expected goals. Leeds had more shots. They had a couple more big chances. If we click on all stats, ironically, Bournemouth didn't miss their big chance. Leeds missed all of their big chances. Ouch. So maybe those were all of the DCL opportunities then. I don't know. Pass accuracy, I don't know, there was quite a lot more from Bournemouth there, wasn't there, according to that. Bournemouth a bit more dirty. 13 fouls compared to 12 of Leeds. Leeds had a lot of corners. Could we have done even more with the corners than what we did? Maybe so. So, in terms of the shots, look at this. Leeds had more shots. They had 1 more shot off target than Bournemouth. They had 3 more on target than Bournemouth. Harrison in second half had a really good shot that was saved by Petrovic. Looked very much like it was going in without a doubt, and you know, as I say, forced a good save from Petrovic in the end. Block shots, look at that. Leeds had 6 blocked. Bournemouth only had 3. Neither team hit the woodwork. Shots inside the box. You see, the Leeds were really piling it on inside Bournemouth's box there. Whereas only 3 shots came from outside, and you know, Bournemouth were taking, you know, more chances outside of the box. In terms of the XG, the expected goals, as I say, Leeds, look at that. Leeds kind of bossing all of that. Passing, we had more accurate long balls. That's interesting, and more accurate crosses as well. So we've got to take more of that, haven't we? We've got to do something more with that, you would think. And a lot of touches in the opponent's box. I noticed at one point they came up with a stat partway through the second half. Leeds had about 20 touches in Bournemouth's box in the second half, compared to Bournemouth's 3 touches in Leeds' box in the second half. It was mammoth difference at that point. Couple of offsides for Bournemouth. Leeds didn't have any offsides at all. It's interesting. Displaying 2 yellow cards each. Nothing much going on there. Duels. Leeds just about won the duels. Ground duels, Leeds won that as well. Aerial duels. Now, considering that Leeds have bought in all these 6-foot+ players, Bournemouth were able to win the aerial duel only by 1, in fairness. And successful dribbles, a couple more from Bournemouth there in the end. So, moving on from that. Let's have a look at the lineup. So Leeds stuck with the same 11 that started against Wolves. Darlow in goal, Bogle at right back, recovered from that foot stamp and played, which was good. Joe Rodon, I'd say, got his goal, which was really good. Pascal Strout. Gabby Gudmundsson with another really good game. I'm not entirely sure where that 5.4 comes from, because Gabby was heavily involved in Leeds' second goal. So I don't know what Fotman's playing at. Look, I'm telling you, and I keep saying it nearly every video, this guy, 10 to 11 million pounds. Gabby Gudmundsson, I'm telling you, if maybe outside of the so-called big boys, he is going to be one of the best left backs in this division. kid you not. This is a great signing. A really, really good signing. And he's going to go under the radar because he's not a striker and he's not a playmaker. But he ain't going to go under the radar for me. He's doing really, really well. And there's a lot of other, content creators that are, kind of, acknowledging that as well. So I'm really pleased, and I hope Gabriel Gudmundsson's form continues throughout the season. Stack's another good signing. Again, he's doing well. Ampadu, captain. Ethan was partially to blame for them getting their second goal, which then got him yellow carded as well. It was a bit cynical, a bit daft. You expect better from your captain, really. But again, we do usually play better when Ethan plays. He's got a good influence on the team. Wendy, leave those wires alone. Sorry, my cat loves to go from the computer table and my wires. Wendy! I am going to shave you, girl. I'm not really, but you have to say it. Wendy! Give over. Crazy cat. Yeah, Longstaff. He's starting to come good, isn't he? I always thought when we signed him, I thought, this is Premier League experience. This is something the squad is going to need. We didn't know what he was going to be like in terms of, his actual quality of play, but just having that Premier League experience and that little bit of know-how, and it's really coming to the fore. He had a very, very good match. Nice goal as well. It's a good job that Pascal Strout ducked. Otherwise, he'd have blocked his own teammate's shot. But he got a really good goal, and he just looks a good player. I mean, he had the game of his career against Newcastle. Obviously, that was the team he used to play for. But he's continued that form, and he's keeping out and Acker out of the team at the minute. I think a lot of people would probably just have Stack in there unless Stack's form starts to drop. But Longstaff's definitely earning his match day wages. There's no doubt about it. And then that front three, Noah Okafor. Again, I thought he looked good in that second half. He's definitely. You can definitely see why we bought him. He's definitely getting better. Brendan Aronson worked his backside off, and successfully so for me. Just working so damn hard for the side, and that that goes a long way. He does lack that little bit of maybe like attacking impetus, if you like. But he just worked that flipping hard, and without that work rate, and without and he didn't. The thing with Brendan, he didn't do too much wrong. He would drive as far forward as he could, and then if he ran into like a Bournemouth brick wall, he'd then make a pass. There was a couple of occasions where he did kind of cut inside and help with the attack, and when you've got two players that are potentially capable of playing on that right wing, both injured, and you then have to rely on what technically would be your third choice right winger. He's doing all right. And it's what he's doing is definitely helping the team. It's not hindering the team. If it was hindering the team, I'd be saying, right, okay, fuck, I need to come up with some kind of solution here. Even if it's, putting a player on maybe out of position temporarily or whatever. But no, Brendan Aronson is in the 11 on merit, as well as the fact that there's two possibilities that are injured right now. His performances are getting better. and you can see that work rate coming through. You know, people will look at it and say, well, he's a right winger, so therefore he should be putting in crosses into the box for DCL to head in or whatever. But that's not his game. You know, we're targeting Noah Okafor to try and do that. Certainly more so than Aronson, at least. And you know, Brendan's doing all right. He is doing all right. It's more apparent now that he's played a couple of games there. It's more apparent now as to what Brendan Aronson's role in the 11 is. And he's playing his role well right now. And then DCL, as I say, you know, Dom Calvert-Lewin, it's frustrating because he's having chances, which is great. You know, this is what you want from your number 9 primary striker. And you know, he could have had a hat-trick in the first half. And it's like, just put one of those away. Put one of those 3 chances away. There are certain elements that come across very similar to how Patrick Bamford used to be like at certain occasions. You know, it'd take him 3, 4, 5 chances to get just to score 1 goal, and it feels as if maybe DCL is of a similar mould, but the two of them do play a little bit differently in terms of their style, and up to now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is bringing a certain style to the 11. And you can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to get in the right positions. He's trying to make something happen. He's trying to get shots off. He's trying to get his head on the ball. He's trying to hold up play, you know, to bring others into it. You know, there's a good. He's showing that he's a good player, and he's showing that he's got that Premier League experience as well. We just need him to be a little more clinical. If he can. As I say, it's a made-up word. I made it up ages ago. Someone else might have made it up as well. If Dom improves his clinicism, then great stuff. And you know, we might get 10 goals out of him, 12, 15, who knows. So yeah, it made sense to stick with the same 11. We'd just beaten Wolves and look good. You know, look quite good doing so. So it made sense. With the Bournemouth lineup, this was quite different to the lineup that I put out. Then again, I didn't know what their injury situation was or anything like that. So I just went with the 11 that had played the most for them. So I was right with Petrovic, I was right with Truffert at left back, I was right with Senesi and Diakite at centre back. I was wrong about Adam Smith. In the end, he was injured apparently. So Jimenez came in at right back. I was wrong about Christie. I think I had Scott starting over Christie. But yeah, Ryan Christie played and was captain to start the match as well, which was maybe slightly surprising. Former Leeds player Tyler Adams started. Got that right. A lot of people were talking about how Tyler Adams was the one that was threatening to sue Leeds United if we didn't let him go. I thought that was Sinisterra. I genuinely thought that was Sinisterra over Adams in terms of the ones that were threatening legal action. But hey ho, either way, don't like either. You know, for the way that they went about getting their exits from Leeds. And in the end, we received over 40 million quid for 2 players, you know, from Bournemouth. So you know, we'll take it. I was right about Semenyo playing. I was wrong about Justin Kluivert playing, son of Patrick Kluivert. Yeah, didn't see Kluivert starting or Adley. Who did I say? I think I had Tavernier starting, and also who else had played a lot of games? I don't know. That particular player might be on the bench. Brooks. I think I had Brooks starting as well. So I had Scott and Brooks playing. and not Clive Hardley. And then they've got Evan Nelson Barbosa up front. So it was a slightly changed lineup to the one that I was anticipating, based on the fact that they didn't seem to change the lineup that much, and maybe these changes didn't quite work out the way that Bournemouth were hoping for. I don't know. I'm not sure. On the bench, in terms of those who came on, so those three there, Scott, Brooks and Tavernier, I had all three of those in their potential starting lineup. And Adam Smith didn't feature at all, as I say, he was obviously injured. For Leeds, Jack Harrison came on. I thought Jack played well again. Jack's not playing too badly when he comes on, you know. He's really not. He's trying hard, I can see it. Got a really good shot off, which on another day might have ended up being a goal. He's not getting much wrong when he comes on, to be fair to him. Tanaka, I thought he looked a bit rusty. I mean, he came on very late, and I couldn't really understand why you were taking off a right winger in Aronson and replacing him with a central midfielder in Tanaka. It seemed a little bit of a strange move from Farke did that. In an ideal world, you bring on another winger of some kind, but no, it was a strange move. And then obviously Lucas Mecha came on very late. I think he replaced DCL in the end. So there wasn't really enough time for Mecha to do anything. The players who did not come on, you see that there weren't a lot of changes from Leeds throughout the match. Farke was obviously quite happy generally from what his team was doing. But again, Okafor came off and Harrison came on. So again, I think Okafor's maybe just building that fitness up. So I think that's where that's coming from. But in terms of on the bench, there was Melier, Biol, Justin, Gruev, James and Pirot. I mean, out of that, if Dan James had been fit enough, you would have said, right, okay, get Dan James on. To replace Brendan Aronson. But instead, he went with Tanaka. And as I say, it was almost like round peg square hole, or square peg round hole, whichever you look at it. It just didn't seem right. Or if the aim of it all was to go more defensive, then surely you bring Biol on and say to maybe Pascal Strout, right, Pascal, if when we are in position you are the designated centre back that can move forward a little bit into midfield, and then Yaka and Joe Roden stay back. Or he could have, if you wanted a more defensive midfielder on to kind of protect the back four, he could have brought in Ilya Gruev. But again, taking Aronson off and replacing him with a central midfielder, it kind of suggested to me that they were looking to, that Farke wanted to maybe change formation for the last few minutes, and I didn't really see it. Tanaka was still relatively wide for the most part, but he's not a wide player. So I don't know. I didn't get it. I didn't really understand it. And as I said, Tanaka did look a bit rusty. It kind of felt like he was just being brought on for like a token few minutes, just to see if running around for 5-10 minutes, if he was capable of that, and if he was, it seems very weird. It was just a very strange substitution that did not work out right in the end. If Brendan Aronson's getting too tired, which he may well have been doing because he was working his backside off, to me, you bring on someone that's going to kind of fit the system, and Tanaka didn't fit the system at the time when we were playing there. It just didn't work. I've heard some people saying, they should have brought Tanaka on earlier, blah blah blah. Why would you bring Tanaka on earlier when you've got all three Leeds midfielders playing pretty well? I don't get it. You just wanted Tanaka on for the sake of having Tanaka on. You could argue that maybe Tanaka might have given us a little bit more forward impetus in terms of getting a third goal. Because again, as I say, when we scored the second goal, I was urging the team on to get a third goal. I was saying throughout the thing, you need a third goal to put this game away, put it to bed. And unfortunately, we got bitten in the backside for that one. So none of those players came on in the end, and then obviously we know that Lucas Perry and Wilfred Gnonto were unavailable. Both are expected to be back after the international break. From Bournemouth's point of view, they didn't use goalkeeper Will Dennis or James Hill, who Leeds were loosely linked with in the summer. Julio Sola or... oh god, I need binoculars for this name. But, oh my word. Milosavljevic, at a guess. Probably butchered his name, but hey ho. But look at that as well, 3 defenders all stayed on the bench there, and they brought on the heavy artillery, didn't they, pretty much. Yeah, so former Leeds United, well, 2 former Leeds United players, one through the academy and one very dodgy loan spell. Lewis Cook, he was unavailable. Adam Smith, club captain, he was unavailable. Came to Leeds on a dodgy loan spell, really. And then Enes Ünal has obviously been out for a very long time because he's had a cruciate ligament injury. So that was the lineups. And as I say, in the end, it finished 2-2. That bugs me. Conceding that late on, and we did the same thing against Fulham, which, as I say, means that we are three points worse off than what we could have been and probably should have been. However, it is what it is. It's done. We have to move on, and we're still in a very good position at this stage of the season. If we continue the rest of the season, that every 6 matches we get 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, we are staying in this division. We are staying in this division. And I'll tell you for why. Because if you count up in sixes, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. And we're saying 2 of each. And I said you need 10 wins and 10 draws, and that will get us at least that, if not more. So if we continue this form throughout the season, we are definitely staying up. Will we continue this form? I have no idea. But I do really like the fact that we are competitive. We do not look like a team that is going to struggle near the bottom of the table. I'm really impressed with this. I think Daniel Farke's doing a very good job at the minute. I think the squad are doing a very good job at the minute. And as I say, when you look at the opposition that we've had so far, some fairly sizable teams. I mean, we haven't played either of the 2 newly promoted teams aside from ourselves in Burnley or Sunderland yet. So all 6 of these teams have been established Premier League teams. We beat Everton. We beat Wolves. Everton have been ever present in the Premier League. They've never been relegated since the Premier League was formed. And we beat them. As I said, we beat Wolves. Okay, they were on bad form. But they've just gotten a draw against Tottenham, for Christ's sake. So, they can't be all bad. We got a draw against Newcastle. A team that's been playing in Europe. A team that, has had some, really good players in the past. Like Shearer, still one of the best strikers that the Premier League's ever had. Just to give that as a singular example. And a team with a massive stadium, they've got one of the biggest stadiums in the division. So, like and as well as having a big stadium, they're well supported. So we've got a draw against them. We've just gotten a draw against Bournemouth, who, as I say, they were in fourth position before the match started, and we've been able to draw against them and very, very, very nearly win against them. We got a loss against Fulham, and that should have been a draw. Whichever way you look at it, that match should have been a draw. A draw would have been a fair result for both teams, based on the performance of both sides. And again, just a really bizarre own goal. Again in added on time at the end of the match. Very, very gutting, very disappointing. But again, we weren't outplayed. We've only been outplayed in one match out of 6, and that's against a team that has been playing Champions League football for the majority of the last 20 years. Let's just put that out there. In fact, even since the Premier League was formed back in '92, Arsenal have been most of the seasons in the top quarter of the division. So take that how you want to. There'll be a lot of teams that lose to Arsenal this season. So I really do not hold Leeds accountable for losing that match. I hold them accountable for getting walloped, because 2 of the goals were preventable. Even 3-0 is a bit of a walloping. But yeah, I've just seen now, Newcastle, they're currently 1-0 up against Arsenal. All of the so-called big boys are having real difficulties in this game week. As I say, Liverpool lost, Chelsea lost, Manu lost, obviously I don't really class them as part of the big bunch anymore. Arsenal are currently losing. There's only Man City out of the current big bunch that they've got to win, and it was quite a sizable one, albeit against Burnley. So take this how you want to, folks, but I'm really enthused by how Leeds have started the season. They're competitive. They don't look out of place. We are not in the Premier League to make up numbers. We are in the Premier League on merit, and we are giving a really good account of ourselves. I can't. I saw a couple of people chatting on one of the review shows yesterday that were saying that Leeds were crap, and this is supposedly Leeds' own fans. One of them said, "Oh, we're crap because we've conceded. We've dropped 3 points out of 2 recent games by conceding goals in added on time." And then another one just said that Leeds were clowns for not starting Tanaka. Like, some of Leeds fans need to shut the fuck up, and I'm sorry for F-bombing there, but some of the shite that is spouted from some of these so-called Leeds fans, the majority of Leeds fans are absolutely off the chart. They are brilliant, right? But then you get this horrible minority, and I'm only talking 1 or 2 people every time I see comments in some of the other content creators' videos. Some of them must be troll accounts. They can't be true Leeds fans. They just can't be. Some of the tripe that they're coming out with. We're a newly promoted club. And, we're doing alright. We really are. We're doing okay. I don't know what some of these fans expect. We're Leeds United. We are a huge club. Yes, we are. But the team is not massive at the moment. We are a massive club, but we're a good team. And that's the difference at the moment. The difference between being a good team and a great team, we are a great club overall, but our team currently is good. Because we've only just come up. The team needs time to develop from being good to great. And it can happen. if we keep this kind of form up for the rest of the season, we're staying up fairly comfortably as well, I would think. You know, as I say, I know the Premier League's got 38 games, and the maths that we did earlier only comes to 36. But you'd be in a position where you could lose the final 2 games and still stay up on that basis. But you know, it's possible. It really is, the way things are going, and I've said it on previous videos that our final 10 games look quite favourable. You know, they look like they're against teams that we could get something against. So as I say, the next match for Leeds is against Tottenham Hotspur, and they've only just been able to get a draw against what so far has been a very poor Wolverhampton Wanderers. And at Ellen Road, Leeds are currently unbeaten. You know, we've got, what is it, one win and 2 draws. 1 win and 2 draws. Half of our games been at home, and we're currently unbeaten at home. I take that every day of the bloody week. We can stay unbeaten for the entirety of the season, which, I mean, that's a massive ask, and I don't think that'll happen. But we're proving we can be tough to beat. And as I said before, majority of the Leeds fans are absolutely fantastic, and then proof of it is when you go to Ellen Road, and all the fans are just singing their hearts out, getting behind the team, and it's a fantastic experience. Like, you know, I've been to Ellen Road many times, and I love it. The atmosphere that we bring, and that we try and help the team by shouting his heads off, and there's some right funny chants as well. You know, a lot of it's quite comical at times, but it's really, really good. And that can help. I'm sure the players feed off it. I'm sure they do. They must do. At the same time, there'll be moments where they don't hear anything because their focus are going to be so zoned in as to what's happening on the pitch. But then there'll be other times when they really do kind of just soak it all in, you know, and you know, we can make Ellen Road a very difficult place for the opposition teams to come to, and I'm sure that'll end up being the case. You know, it clearly already has, because we've been able to get 3 games and at home and not lose any of them so far. And again, decent opposition. You know, decent opposition that we've been against as well. You know, let's not ignore that. So, I wasn't intending on this review video being pushing an hour. I was aiming for near a half an hour, and that's been an epic failure. But there's been quite a bit to talk about here, and you know, we've covered a lot of ground. But no, things are looking positive. They're looking good, and long may this continue for Leeds United. Am I disappointed that we didn't beat Bournemouth? Yeah. But then again, put it in context. Bournemouth, they were in a Champions League place at the point of starting that match, and to say that we're disappointed that we didn't beat them says quite a lot. You know, the fact that we just lacked a little bit of game management, you know, for both the Fulham and the Bournemouth game, you know, where we could have got some extra points. It does speak quite a lot of volume there, but you know, the way that I do see it is it's an extra point closer to safety, and that is what we need. Every single point is going to matter. In most cases, I would say that it's a point. You know, I would say it's 2 points dropped in most cases, but for the situation we're in this season, I have to still see it as a point gained. I'm disappointed that we didn't win it, because we did have a very good chance to win it. But you know, the lads are working their backsides off, which is the bare minimum that any Leeds fan wants from a Leeds United player. You know, without a doubt, it is the bare minimum. But we really are working hard, and it's so obvious. And you know, those efforts will come fruitful. I'm certain of it, even at this early stage. So well done to everyone at Leeds United. Big well done. I'm going to leave it there, folks. Do please give the video a like. Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Big thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.